job can I possibly have upon graduation? Take note, I say upon graduation, right? Will I have a job? I guess that's a question, that's a burning question that you'd like answered. And so that's how I'd like to proceed with this quick presentation. So let's begin with IMC, Integrated Marketing Communication, which is a program that we've had for the longer time. Ben, could we just flash the slides now? Yeah. Okay, so, Integrated Marketing Communication, or IMC, hang on, I am not seeing the slide. There you go, okay. So where are our graduates? I guess that's the answer, right? That I wanted to give you. You see, where are our graduates? Where are our graduates? So they are in the following professions. First, more and more, the IMC program now prepares you, or prospective students, for work related to brand management, marketing, or corporate communications, or public relations, for what we might call client companies, like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Mondelez, Jollibee, McDonald's, etc., Johnson & Johnson, Colgate, Palmolive, banks, insurance, so all kinds of industries, actually. And now, after having graduates for 20 years, our graduates are really in all kinds of industries doing any of these: brand marketing, brand management, marketing, or they're probably in the corporate communication side, or PR, public affairs, and public relations. So, in fact, a few of our guests this morning have worked in these companies. And then a number of our graduates are also in the advertising industry. And I'd like to define advertising in a broader sense, because today the industry has evolved dramatically, and there are many industries within what we might call advertising. And we have students doing account management work, so people in the business side of advertising, doing strategic planning as well. And there are people in the creative side, so people who are doing copywriting, art direction, production. We have a few now who are heading creative departments of advertising agencies, or creative in other types of agencies. Then, of course, the whole area of media. So there are also media agencies, and we have people doing working for media agencies, doing media planning or media buying, or even other functions within media agencies. One of our alumni guests this morning spent many years precisely in a media agency. And then, of course, digital, the whole world of digital. We are in the era of digital. So we live in it. And so we have a lot of graduates doing work related to digital. And then we have e-commerce and technology. So also more and more of our graduates are in this field, doing both the management side of it or creative side. And we have graduates in Google and Facebook, Lazada, Shopee, tech startups, that, quite a lot of them. Some of our guests this morning have worked in Google. We also have one right now, an alumnus who's been with Google for some time, in different countries, and now he's based in the US, in the head office of Google. Facebook, two of our guests this morning are from Facebook Philippines, and we're going to hear from them. Lazada, of course, yes, one of our guests is now the country marketing head for Lazada. So there you go. This is where our graduates are, and the program prepares you for this kind of profession. I'm not going to go into details. We can lead you to our website where you can take a look at more in detail our curriculum, our faculty, what our students study. But I'd just like to spend just a few more minutes on our master's program, on our 5-year master's program. I guess all the students in UA&P will go through this, both for IMC and now also for media and entertainment management. We have a master's program, a straight master's program, and would like to really encourage all our students to go through this. But you have to maintain a certain grade average to make sure that you actually make it all the way to the end, right? To the master's, because if not, at a certain point in time before the last year, if you don't make a cutoff grade, then you graduate with an undergraduate with a bachelor's degree, which is still very, very good. But obviously, the 5-year master's program is the thing to go for. And I guess the distinct feature of the 5-year program is this, what we call the professional residency program. The professional residency program. It's a 10-month intensive program where our students are assigned to one of our partner companies. So we do have companies we partner with where we place our students for 10 months where they work from Monday to Friday, and they are part of business teams. We have agreements with companies on certain objectives we have to meet. So it is an internship, but a serious kind of internship where our students, as I said, are part of business teams. Now, and all these graduates, alumni that we have with us this morning can tell you a little bit more. This is a paid internship, but we prefer to call it residency rather than internship, because like the concept of medical school, where after a medical student has finished all his or her academics, classroom work, then they train, specialize in a particular field where they do what we call the residency, and they work with a consultant doctor under training, and that's the whole idea here. This is a paid residency, and I just wanted to mention that this is one of the best ways how you can have one foot in a company, and this is how we dislodge, for example, Athenians and people from other, sorry, I just mentioned that, but other universities in getting slots. So this is how, for instance, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, they're very, very strict and they have very stringent qualifications to get people to the management program. And they typically, for instance, many of them get honor graduates, right, from the top universities. Now, even if you're not an honor graduate, but you're an IMC and you did your residency with the likes of Unilever or Nestle, etc., your advantage is that you're not just a piece of paper or an email CV or a resume that is applying. They actually know you in person, in the flesh, because you've worked with them for a year, and therefore even your bosses are the very first ones to really push for you and recommend you for hiring internally. Anyway, we can answer a few more questions if there are regarding this in the Q&A. Now let's go quickly to the next program, which is Media and Entertainment Management. Could we switch the slides, please, Ben? To Media and Entertainment Management. Here we go. So this is a program that we started maybe more than 5 years ago, and I put here our vision. The vision of this program is to make the Philippines the next Korea or the next India as far as the entertainment industry is concerned. We know that, Bollywood of India has been phenomenal, and who hasn't been affected or impacted by the Korean entertainment industry, right? K-drama, K-pop, BTS, and name it. The Korean experience has been fantastic. The contribution to Korean economy, Korean culture, Korean tourism, name it. There are many more things we can say. Now, our vision is, through this program, we hope to be able to create leaders in the future who will make the Philippines the next Korea in entertainment. So the current program we have is what we call a producer's track. So graduates of this program are trained to be on top of entertainment programs as producers. So you monetize entertainment products and to be on top, to manage, to oversee the whole thing, whether this be in any platform, TV, radio, cinema, digital, etc. You can get into management functions in media companies, many other functions doing marketing, licensing, events, digital, social, etc. For companies like CNN, ABS, well, we hope they get back, GMA, Netflix, ESPN. You can be in publications, you can be in gaming, you can be in the music industry. The field of entertainment is quite broad, and so again, the potentials are quite a lot. You could also be in the creative content side, again, as writers, as directors, producers, even acting, right? Again, in all forms of media. As we speak in the MEM program, we are preparing our second track, which is the script writing track. Hopefully by the time you, our prospective listeners this morning, are on board, this could be a potential option for those of you interested in the field of media and entertainment. That's it. I think I maximized the time allotted for me. And so now what I'd like to do is to invite our alumni. I guess, Mike, are you going to introduce them? And before I can join them in the panel?
Yes, Dr. K.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. So before we get on to our guests, just want to thank Dr. K for that great introduction. I definitely agree with what he said about SEM, because me personally, I'm also a School of Communication student, again, taking Media Entertainment Management, and I can say that the quality of the program has been amazing thus far. Something I'd like also to share is what makes the program so great is our full-time faculty for School of Communication are actually rather small, and most of our professors are composed of part-time profs who are working in the field, so they can always supply us with up-to-date information and strategies to tackle the work program. With that being said, I'm sure you would like to hear about the personal experiences of our alumni in the field. So who better to call on than our next guest? She graduated with a master's degree in integrated marketing communications, and since then she has gone on to work in many fields such as client management, marketing, digital, and customer relations management. She is currently a client partner of Facebook Philippines. May we please introduce to you Miss Lori Lee.
Hello, hi, good morning.
Hi, Lori. Good morning. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. K.
How are you?
Doing good. Happy to be here. And thank you for inviting.
You're welcome. So how are we going to do them? Okay, maybe each of you can speak first, and then, later on, we could probably be conversing together. So yeah, Lori, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience in UA&P as an IMC student. I remember your story, Lori. This great story you always tell. When you graduated, Lori is a graduate of Poveda, one of the undergraduates in high school. And tell us a bit of, maybe you can start with that, the story of why you chose UA&P and why you chose IMC in spite of having been admitted in other top universities, and your professional career. Thank you.
Sure. I guess, I like to tell a story, and I've been doing marketing talks for UA&P since I was in UA&P. I think that was college. So it was a tough decision because I really wanted to get into advertising or creatives specifically. So that's why I was really geared towards schools that could offer very good courses in advertising and communications. So of course I applied to all the top universities. Thankfully got accepted to my top picks. But at the same time, it was a tough decision then. Assessing the course, UA&P had a very strong and focused course. Though during that time, and that was back in 2000s, early 2000s, UA&P, as at least the IMC course, was still not as well known as it is now. And so, that was like something I had to consider, knowing that in my heart, I really wanted to do the creative track. with, let's say, the likes of UP and Ateneo. But at one point, I guess I took the more rational route. I said, this is a good course. I will, invest in this. And I never looked back since. I was very happy with the decision and very much surprised with how the course rolled out. And, especially coming into fourth and fifth year. I think fourth year was critical, and something that I was mulling over prior to this talk was it was the courses that you don't really realize at that point that really make a difference when it comes to work in your professional life. Like presentation skills was so basic. But then, you think about it, it was something that I was able to apply a lot of those principles, and Dr. K's voice always in my head when I present. And I think that really made a difference as well when it comes to the graduates in terms of how you can present and be confident enough in front of, let's say, in a meeting or in a crowd. At the same time, I think the master's course was very valuable. Dr. K was talking about fifth year. And among all the years, I think in UA&P, that was the most valuable for me because my professors were all industry practitioners. And the course is grueling. So you're not just working on real work. So it's not stuff that they just give you on the side. You're actually working as an accounts person. So I worked as an accounts person in Publicis, which is an ad agency, and I handled real clients, and I think that's where that was most valuable. And on top of that, I was hired. I had not yet graduated, but I was already offered a position in Publicis. So I think that was testament to the course itself. Didn't have to worry about applying anywhere else. So because of that, really good background in advertising. Eventually, I just was in advertising for maybe how long was that? Maybe 7 years, 8 years, and moved from different agencies. But at the same time, got a call from Facebook, which I thought was a joke in the beginning because we had no office in the Philippines. And so while I wound up being employee, we're still arguing. We both started at the same time. So I'm either employee 1 or 2, but we started Facebook office in the Philippines. There were just 4 of us. There's literally no office. You're renting a space, and it was a startup. And it was a really interesting experience, moving from advertising to tech. But I think at the same time, they were looking for folks that had that sort of background. And so I was very thankful again for the course. I think that served as a great foundation for being able to prepare yourself for what they call, quote unquote, the real world. And there's really no lag, I would say. There's no transition period. Whatever you experience in fifth year, that's exactly how it is in the real world. So it's pretty much a very good, it's really definitely a very good experience. Right?
Thank you, Lori.
Sure.
All right, so thank you so much for that, Ms. Lee, for sharing your experiences with us. But the fun's not over yet. We actually have 3 more speakers to go through who would like to share their experiences with you guys. Our next speaker is also from Facebook, and he manages the strategic communications with the top agencies in the country. Before he was with Facebook, he was also managing director of Touch BPN, where he helped rebrand them to Touch XDA. He was also previously a general manager of Starcom Media Best Group Philippines. So without further ado, please welcome the head of agency of Facebook Philippines, Mr. Liam Kapati, to share his experience.
Hi.
Hi, Liam. Good
Hi. Good morning.
joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hello, Lori, and I probably see her every day in meetings. But that being said,
Tell us the story.
Oh goodness, I don't know if it's probably as good as Lori's. I saw the video as well, so that's really cool. My journey. So I graduated. Batch. What am I? Batch 2003. I think, yeah, that's from the masters. So pretty much the same. I'll probably backtrack in terms of what attracted me to the course. And I would have to say during this time, I think it's exactly this type of event, but in real person, where you would actually present to all of the students. And I think out of all the presentations during that time, it was the communications, the School of Communications. It wasn't even school yet. What were we back then? I think we were yeah, I forgot, before we were the School of Communications. I forgot what we were called.
Institute
The Institute of Communications. So we had, I felt like, yeah, the Institute of Communications had the best presentation, and I felt it was the one that exuded the most confidence. And being somebody who was on the fence between industrial economics and business management, I just felt like, you know, diving into this one. And basically, you know, I mean, it is what it is. It is a tough course. It's a tough course because there is a lot of work. Every time I think I spoke to somebody during this time, they would always ask how many units you have. And yeah, I think we had one of the most, I think, within the semester. So I think just being able to, again, get through the rigor of the course, and then eventually making it to fifth year, which I think Laurie had explained it very well. It is what it is. The experience that you get from fifth year is really, I think, the experience that you get in real life. From my experience, one of our professors during this time was then the managing director of Starcom MediaVest. And so I ended up to become, I think, the first person to end up in the media agency. During this time, I think so, right? And I think even the concept of a media independent agency was still pretty new at this time. It was maybe like 2 years in. And so having been the first one with that experience was actually pretty funny, but then it also was exactly that. So I was given real clients to deal with, real presentations. And I remember during this time, one of my earlier presentations as a resident was actually to present a, what do you call this? Kind of like a creative media buy to, I think, the head of Summit during that time. So it was pretty spectacular. I mean, when you think about the exposure that you get. And then similarly to Laurie, I was asked if I wanted to join Starcom MediaVest Group. And being, you know, I basically said, yeah, why not? You know, it seems to be a fun industry. It was difficult. And ever since then, I had actually worked in Starcom for a pretty long time. And then I did leave for another agency, and then I came back to Starcom again to eventually become the general manager in 2013. And then I left, and then I led another media agency before Facebook actually called and asked if I wanted to join. And I thought that was, yeah, so that was last year. So I've been in Facebook for a year now. And yeah, Laurie's been my colleague for about a year. So it's been definitely fun. But I think if there's one thing that really stands out for me in this course and what prepares you for real life is because you're exposed again to so many different disciplines, with the teachers coming again from their real life like icons within the industries that they teach. And so just having that exposure and just having that experience, I believe it really helps you to connect the dots in terms of whatever it is that you really want to do. So jumping from a media agency background, and then now we're in tech. And I still think the fundamentals, you know, that we were taught in IMC were so critical even to today, because now we're forced to collaborate a lot more in a tech company. And then at the same time, we have to learn a lot of disciplines that we probably didn't fundamentally know because we didn't grow up, again, I think, in a very digital, environment. It was still at its infancy. I remember when digital marketing was coming to the fore in 2007, 2008. So, you know, fast forward to where it is today, definitely, I think, again, the skills that we were taught during this time in this course, I think are still working for, at very least for me today. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, Liam. I just have to add for our listeners that Liam actually taught for us in the program in IMC, and I hope he will still be, and I'm sure he will, Liam.
Yes,
faculty among our lecturers. So great, thank you, Mike. Back to you.
Thank you.
Right. So thank you so much for Mr. Kapati. What you said is definitely true. You know, IMC is prestigious course, SEM is prestigious, and it's also difficult. I can say that right now. Dr. Kliatchko is actually one of my professors right now. So, but what's something I've heard from I have a lot of friends who are alumni from SEM, and what they all say is that the rigor of the SEM programs really, really helps them out in their work life. That they can say that when they started out that their fellow coworkers are having a hard time, but since SEM prepared them, they were able to adjust right away and really excel in their field. So with that, our next speaker, like our speakers before him, is another big name in the marketing business. He spent 15 years in Unilever handling 15 different brands while working in local, regional, and global marketing roles. After his career in Unilever, he became an industry partner to telco, travel, and QSR clients for Google Philippines. He is also an entrepreneur and has set up 3 e-commerce health food delivery businesses, Kitos of Manila, the Sugar Free Bakery, and Eats Like Manila. He is currently the Country Chief Marketing Officer for Lazada Philippines. Please welcome Mr. Neil Trinidad.
Hello, Neil.
Hi. How are you, Jerry? It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
So, all right. So maybe I'll just dive straight into it. Yeah. I've always liked being able to talk about the IMC program, any sort of forum I'm invited to. I really owe a lot to Jerry and to all of the faculty in the School of Communication. Like Lori and Liam, I had a great experience. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to join the IMC program was really because of the 5th-year residency. I was one of those students who early on had an idea of what I wanted to be when I sort of grew up. And I always wanted to be part of Unilever. And I saw that UA&P had a great program in IMC that gives you the opportunity to be placed in a company like Unilever. So I did my residency there. It was, a great opportunity to work with some of the biggest brands in the country, to be mentored by extraordinary leaders, and to sort of grow up in a company that's very purpose and values driven. I spent, a lot of years there, around 15 years there, across different roles. Also interesting, in our batch, and the same batch as Gladys, who's the speaker after me, there were 4 of us who were placed in Unilever for our residency program, and all 4 of us were hired afterwards. So I spent around 15 years in Unilever. It was a great time. I worked in local, regional, and global roles. I left as a marketing director, and then I made the shift to tech. I moved to Google for about a year. I enjoyed it. It was very different, but I wanted to go back to marketing. And so when the opportunity to lead the marketing function of Lazada came, I really jumped at the opportunity. And it's been a year since, but life in tech moves much faster. So I've been there for about a year, but it feels like 3. And I really feel like I've come full circle because it's Lazada's first year to be hosting IMC residents. We're very happy to have 2 very strong residents from the IMC batch this year, Alex and Kamia. And it's just nice to see the next generation of talent and to be part of their development. So that's it. So for students and parents who are considering the School of Communication, all I can say is that it's one of those programs that not only trains you because you're mentored by extraordinary professionals in the field, but it really opens up doors to a flourishing career and opportunities that not everyone gets. So that foot in the door allows students to learn and to show what they're made of, and oftentimes is what gives them the opportunity to get a permanent job in that company immediately after graduating. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's always great to hear you. Thank you for your continued support all these years. Well, to all of you, Lori, Liam, so great. I'm sure there probably could be questions later. And it's good you mentioned that beginning this year, Lazada is part of our partner companies for the professional residency program. Yeah. Good, Mike. Let's go to our last alumni with us.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Trinidad. And what I thought really stood out for me about your testimony was the part about, being mentored under this SEM system. What's great about SEM is that our professors, not only are they really good, but they're also, pretty friendly, and you get the chance to know them. I've gotten the chance to become friends with some of my professors, and from that, I'm really able to really learn more about the business. They're there to answer any of my questions. They're there to help me out. I'm actually doing an internship with one of them right now. I actually heard of some students who they got along really well with the professors, and the professors work in the field that the professors hired them straight out of graduation. So I think that's something very interesting to take note of. All right, now before we move on to our final speaker, we would just like to remind everyone that if you have questions, you may ask them to our chat box and we will go through them later. Our next and final speaker has had a lot of experience both locally and internationally, with her recent experiences letting her manage multi-markets for Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Myanmar. She's the marketing director of Visa for both Philippines and Guam. Please welcome Ms. Gladys Cochan.
Hello, Gladys.
Hi, good morning, Dr. K, Neil, Liam, Laurie, and everyone. I think when I was applying for university, I wasn't too sure of what I wanted to do. In fact, for each of the schools I got into, I applied to a different course each time. So that's how confused I was. Like a lot of students, I think I depended a lot on opinions of people around me. And so every time that application periods for the various schools would come in, I would think of a different course to apply to. I chose UA&P for a lot of reasons, but one of them is actually the fact that for the first 2 years, you're in a general humanities course. So you're given a little bit more time to figure out what you really indeed want to do, which I think is crucial because at 16 years old, I think it's quite common to not really know what you want to do and what you want to be. In fact, for UA&P, I initially thought of going for the economics course. And I think probably I was cutting it a bit too close, maybe 2 to 3 weeks before we had to make a final decision. I met Dr. K. He explained to me what the IMC program was about, and it suddenly clicked in my head that this is what I wanted to do. So Dr. K is one of the most remarkable people in my life. I think my life would have been very different if I did not have that crucial conversation. And as Neil said, we were in the same batch. I was in IMC from 2001 to 2004. And Neil and I were part of the biggest fifth-year masteral class. Are we still the biggest, Dr. K?
Yes, you are. That batch is still the biggest.
Yes.
Let's say the best.
Well, you said that, not me. And then I did my fifth-year residency in Citibank. I was also absorbed into the cards marketing department, like a lot of my batchmates at that time. I spent 2.5 years in Citi in the cards marketing group, after which I moved to Smart, where I spent 11 odd years as a telco marketing professional. I did a 2-year stint in TV5 in the media industry, in TV5, Signal, and the other media investments of the MVP group. And 4 years ago, I joined Visa as a head of marketing for Philippines and Guam. And recently, I've also handled other markets in the Asia Pacific region. I also teach part-time in the IMC course. I've had the pleasure of teaching a good number of students, and I happily affirm that the quality of education has been sustained comparing to when I was a student to now when I'm a teacher. And what's always struck me about IMC students and graduates are kind of three things. First is this ability to think on their feet, which I think is such a crucial skill in the real world. Second is a work ethic. Even as students, I'm always amazed at the work ethic that my students exhibit. Just taking every assignment and every project seriously, as if they were paid to do the work. Third is a strong grasp of form and function, which as somebody who's been working for a number of years, I realize it's a very, very important aspect in succeeding in the corporate world. It's not enough that you know the subject matter, that you have the substance, but you also need to have the form to be able to hold people's attention and convince people on what you're trying to do. And I think that's something very remarkable across the graduates of IMC. And so to the parents and the high school students who are listening to us this morning, choose UA&P and choose one of the courses in the School of Communication because I think it's honestly, if you want to be in this field, this is the best place to be.
Wow, thank you, Gladys. That's great. So, well, I guess if I were a parent and I listened to the four of you, wow, this is mind-boggling. It's just really so convincing. Anyway, I'm biased, so thank you again. So, Mike, are we open for questions or?
Yes, I'm about to get right to that. So thank you so much, Ms. Kochan, for sharing your testimony with us. I really like what you said about thinking on your feet. That's really an integral part of the School of Communication, especially since what you're doing is in both IMC and MEM is when you're presenting. A lot of the times, you're not just presenting to your professors. Your professors will bring in industry professionals who you have to present to you. So you got to be on your feet. You have to think. You have to catch their attention because they're not just people, other people in the school. They're people who work in the field. As an example, in my brand management class, I'd often have to present to my professor's friends in the food industry, in the different marketing agency, and for my final project, we actually had to present a marketing program to about for an indie film to the director and the producer. So that aspect about it really keeps you on your feet. So thank you once again to our amazing speakers for sharing their great insights with us. And now for the moment I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for, the question and answer segment. For this segment, may I please ask Dr. K and our speakers to please unmute yourselves so that you can answer these questions and queries. All right, so we have basically more or less 3 sets of questions, the ones that we already have, the ones that the audience may want to send in through Zoom, and the ones you're receiving from our Facebook Live. So for our first question, this one I direct towards Dr. K. How are the students in IMC and MEM courses taking their majors classes during this time? Since their courses are heavily influenced in presenting and group collaborations, how does that work online?
Sorry, how are the students what? Sorry, I didn't catch that. What?
How are the students taking their majors this time? Because you have to present a lot, right? And their group works, but it's all on time. It's all online. So how has the SEM managed to adapt to this situation?
Well, good question. The answer is I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know, right? We are going through this. All of us are going through this for the first time, and I think it's pretty exciting. I think we're all managing. If there's anything I can say, all our teachers, both full-time and lecturers, were sort of required to go through some training over the summer. To understand a little bit more of this whole thing of online learning and online teaching. So I guess we're all coping. We have a platform that we use, which is called Canvas, and so it is what most universities, even around the world, are using. And so we have that. We have Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. I personally have classes every week for 3 hours with you, Mike. And so far we've been doing fine managing with Zoom presentations. Yes, actually, last semester we already had a little bit of an appetizer of what is to come, right? Because we all got caught with the lockdown in March, and we were not done with the school year yet. So presentations were in all kinds and all forms. There were pre-recorded presentations, there were live presentations, etc. So I think we're all going through some experimentation, gain experience, and use the what experience will tell us. And I hope that answers it.
I thank you, Dr. K. I'd also like to add, just to put emphasis on the training that the different professors went through. So all the professors in the university had to go through a 30-hour seminar about online classes. This was created by the IT department of the School of Education. So it was an intensive seminar about, the pedagogy of teaching online, as the different theories, as well as, a proper seminar on how to use our online platform. So I can say my professors right now, like they're really great. They're really setting up their modules, assignments. They really know how to use the platform properly. So this one goes out to the speakers, whoever of you guys would like to answer. Was it easy looking for a job after graduating IMC?
I'll go for this one. I didn't have to because it was already built in terms of the residency. I think, yeah, I think it goes for all of us. But yeah, I think because again, during the residency, I think, which is 10 months, right after that, the school has to make a decision. Well, sorry, I mean, the company kind of makes that decision whether or not they want to take you on before the end of your residency. And I think lucky enough for, yeah, I think the majority of residents, we do get, what do you call this? We do get absorbed into the company before the end of our tenure.
All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Liam shared. I think that's the advantage of being an IMC resident is you have an advantage unlike many other, first-time applicants because the people in the company, your leaders, would have had 10 months of experience to see, how you've developed and your impact in the company. So I was offered a job before I even graduated, and I was offered to come into Unilever as a management trainee. For many of my peers in my batch, many of us were offered by our host companies a permanent position. And I think in this sort of new world where there's so much anxiety and uncertainty, I think that any advantage you have is something which just really sets you apart, right? And I think that's a unique trait or proposition that the IMC program has is it gets you the foot in the door. Now you just have to do your best to really make sure that you stand out. And more often than not, if there is a job opening, they'll offer it to you.
Okay, thank you. The next question, this is back to Dr. K. Is the coverage of Media Entertainment Management, MEM, the same as AB Communication Arts or Mass Communication? Kindly explain the advantages of MEM over other communication courses and being a graduate of MEM in UA&P.
Absolutely different. We always want to think forward. We always want to. Not that we want, but we look at what happens outside. We look what happens in industry. We try to see, with the help of industry, where the industry is going. And so this is definitely not mass. Even the very term, I guess even the name of the program tells you what kind of thinking we have in UA&P. We're never going to use mass communication. That is so 1960s, 70s, 80s paradigm. I mean, and so I guess it's really different because we do a lot of consultations with people from industry. In July, we probably had 3-4 Zoom meetings with people from ABS-CBN, and we're talking to bosses of ABS-CBN. Precisely we were fixing, we continuously improve. As a matter of fact, if there's something probably the students will complain about, and I don't mind, and I understand, is that, until we get it right, we will keep changing a little bit some of the subjects, right? Because, our thinking is if a subject is not relevant, we'll get it out, we'll take it out. I mean, if it doesn't make sense, right? And our friends in technology, Neil, Lee, and Laurie, everybody's going to tell you that, Neil said it feels like 3 years. I mean, because things keep changing. What works today will not work tomorrow, will probably not work 30 minutes from now. I mean, I don't know. So, and one thing we really don't want is to teach what we might call fruit preserves to our students, right? Dried mangoes and dried stuff. We don't feed our students with food preserves. We try to give you what is actual, what is real, founded, of course, on principles, on time-tested principles and things that will never change. So there are things that change, there are things that will never change, right? For example, in IMC, consumer understanding, getting your grounding on consumer understanding, that will never change. In media, audience understanding, getting into the minds of audiences, that will never change, right? Platforms will change, et cetera, et cetera. So is it different? Yes. How different? Because it tells you that we think differently, and therefore we will execute differently, and that's it. I don't know if anyone would like to add to that, but yeah.
All right, thanks, Dr. K.
Welcome.
This one's for our speakers. This is an interesting one. What is the importance of marketing strategy in the pandemic era and the post-pandemic era?
Neil, Gladys, any one of you?
Yeah, I can start. Take a stab at it. So we've really seen. We're all going through this massive change, right? The pandemic has changed everything we do. It's changed the way we live, we work, we shop. I'll give you an example because I live in the world of e-commerce. We've never seen e-commerce change as rapidly as it has over the last 5 or 6 months. Right? There's been so much acceleration in a short amount of time, and so many more people are now on e-commerce platforms. I think what we've been able to, how marketing strategy has helped us is to always think about the consumer first, or the people that we serve first. How is this pandemic impacting their lives? How can we help them? How can we make things easier for them, or more convenient, or more secure, or contactless? So we're, as a marketeer, it's always about thinking about the consumer first, and then trying to define ways for your brand or your platform to be able to help them during this time. For us in Lazada, it was all about being able to serve first essential goods, so really ramping up our groceries business. Then it was about having fresh produce on the platform, then getting everything sort of back and serviceable in terms of all of our categories, or whether it's about starting to use our platform to become a platform for good, right? So during the early parts of the pandemic, we were helping raise funds and donations to frontliners through Lazada for Good. So we've seen that what you learn as a marketer is versatile, and it applies to any sort of category out there. But one thing's always going to be universal is the passion for consumer insight and the desire for your brand or your platform to be an agent for good. So I think that this pandemic has been a real test for many marketers out there, and I think that for many of our young sort of incoming students, it's an exciting time to be a marketer, because nowadays marketers have the ability to do good, right? And it's not just about selling products; it's about positively impacting the lives of our consumers. And I think that's a calling for anyone who feels like they want to make a difference and they want to make an impact.
Yeah, I think echoing what Dr. K and even Neil mentioned, this is where I think it's a classic example of how marketers really need to constantly evolve, and you're iterating like by the day. The pandemic, I think, is the singular event that totally changed the landscape in a couple of weeks. And it's been so different for marketers now. We used to rely on, when I was on the advertising side, we used to rely on very constant types of advertising: TV, billboards, radio, and of course digital to a certain extent. But when the pandemic hit, suddenly options were were now very few, and people started turning to digital. And I think that's where suddenly we're seeing so many brands go on live. There are things like live shopping, which, to be honest, for me was never really relevant. And here I am now, booking in my calendar a live shopping of a mall tomorrow because they're going through like Toy Kingdom and True Value, right? Who knew I'd be even watching these videos maybe 3 months back? So I think that's where it's constantly changing. But I think the pandemic has also taught us that there's so much within our disposal that we're really not taking advantage of. We can probably lean towards what's familiar, which is what we know has been tried and tested. But at the same time, I think we should take advantage of technology that's around us. E-commerce is something we've always taken for granted, I think, as Filipinos. In other markets, they've been heavily dependent on e-commerce. But here, I think it's something that's suddenly grown during this pandemic, and connecting with people virtually. I've never done as many, messenger calls, Zoom calls in my life until now. And so I think that's where we're seeing it's such a different world that we have over the past 4 months in this pandemic. But I think it's a good thing that we're changing. At the same time, we're changing for good. So I mean, for the good of the country, for the good of even businesses, and we're using, like, let's say, for instance, Facebook has done these small things to really support small businesses. Things like providing what we call ad credits to allow small businesses to be able to market themselves and push them up in terms of being able to be discovered. So I think now I'm seeing so many friends put up their own quarantine business, whether it's a bake shop selling food, their mom's favorite dish, and all of that are popping up on Instagram and Facebook. And it's quite interesting. So it's a great time, I think, to be a marketer, because there's so much for us to be able to take advantage of. And again, a lot of things we can do also for the world positively.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on that one, since we're already speaking about Facebook as well. I think what this pandemic has done is to really, I think, put a spotlight on those businesses which were at least thinking about the groundwork of what the future is, and it caught out those that kind of were delaying it. And because of, obviously, I mean, the amount of change that has happened over the past, I don't know, 6 months, 5 months, even within the first 2 months, right, of the pandemic, it really highlighted that stark difference, I think, in how businesses were thinking about the future. And like Laurie and I, we go through, and I'm sure Neil as well, and Gladys, we always have these conversations now, I mean, with businesses in terms of, how do we get them to where they need to be? And truth be told, I mean, there's so many things happening. I mean, e-commerce is one of them, but even things like, conversational commerce, which, basically like commerce that's taking place even on Messenger, are things that, a lot of businesses are just coming to terms with, but actually it's the consumers who are actually leading that behavior change, where consumers are actually messaging, and therefore it just makes sense to, at the end of the day, also seamlessly integrate that into, how we actually sell, goods and services to them. So yeah, I think that's, just one thing I think has, again, become such a stark contrast in terms of pre and post pandemic environments.
Mike, be there?
Yeah, just waiting if anyone else wants to add. All right, so with that, personally, I'd also like to add that, yeah, what gives SEM an edge is really the integration idea, especially behind IMC, the whole integration aspect and really doing it for the consumer. So IMC, our whole marketing, of course, it's very practical, but it's still founded on solid academic theory. So IMC is founded on it's a strategic process, audience focused, channel driven, good content, results driven. See, Dr. K, I did the readings, just proving that. But yeah, it's really focused on the consumer. So it's really focused on the aggregate, actually. So it's really centered on the people. So that's what makes it special. Next question. For our speakers, what makes UA&P unique among other schools? In general or specific of you?
Well, maybe I could start. I think one thing at this point, UA&P has really built a very good reputation in terms of the graduates. So, even when I was in the ad agency, I would hear of when we talk about who to hire, a lot of the discussions revolve around how different UA&P graduates are in terms of how even their decorum, how professional they are. You don't feel like you're working with somebody who's just fresh, who's a fresh grad. You feel like you're working with somebody who is quite seasoned, and I think that's a testament to the course itself and the kind of exposure you get. And that's just not as in advertising. I'm hearing that even in companies I work with who also have UA&P grads. So I think that's a good thing now, that companies have this high regard for UA&P graduates and I wouldn't say that they're biased, but I think that that's an edge to begin with. Even when you try applying to a company, we know that UA&P stands for something good.
I want to add to that answer by saying as well that the humanities background, I think, is a very unique feature of UA&P. And when you apply that to a field of marketing and advertising, I think that takes on a different kind of flavor. When you come from the very basic truth of what it means to be human, what is your responsibility as a human, what it means to add value in our time here on earth, that puts a very kind of a very special lens of responsibility. And that's something that I think is also very evident in the graduates that we have. Like a number of my co-panelists mentioned using marketing as a tool for the good, especially in a difficult time like what we're going through now. And having that at the very kind of core of your college education is, I think, the most unique part of all.
All right. So, anyone else? Is anyone going to say anything? Okay. So, Dr. K, this one's for you. In case COVID persists, will this program continue to be offered online?
Absolutely. No other way. So yes, the answer is yes.
All right. All right. This one can go for Dr. K or the speakers. What would you tell parents who think that it's not worth going to UA&P since everything's online and online classes do not give the usual UA&P advantages? What would you tell them?
Can I say something? Yeah. It has to do with the very curriculum content. I think I'd pick up from what Gladys said. You know, it's not just so much the form it takes, like online or live, etc. Of course, that there's a whole different experience if you are, you know, inside the classroom and interaction with fellow students, etc. on campus. But without that, you know, it now boils down to really the content. What is it that we're really offering? What's the substance of what we're offering, right? And I guess that's probably what makes it distinctive, the UA&P education distinctive. It's really, you know, it has to do with the very mode of the university, which is Unitas, the Latin word for unity. But what does that mean? That means a lot, actually. But it means really unity of person, coherence, unity of life. The education we try to provide in UA&P is not just to develop the intellectual development and academic development of students. We are also interested in the heart, in the very person, in the very being of the human being. So it's the total person we're interested in. That's why Gladys talked about, you know, it's the humanities and understanding what a human person is. The dignity of a human person is core to your education. You don't wait until you're a professional when you start talking. All companies today talk about business for good. What's their higher purpose for existing as a business, right? CEOs of companies have gone out there, McKinsey interviews, Harvard interviews, etc. With CEOs and marketing heads globally talk about why their brands need to have purpose. Well, thankfully in UA&P, said in many ways, the narrative can be very different, and you know, but that's really the core. It's about what is a human being all about. You know, what is the higher purpose of a human being, and why is this all important? So unity, unitas, the unity of life, is the unity of knowledge and the development of the intellect, the will, the heart. I mean, you know, the whole person. That's why another way of saying is, what's so different about the UA&P education? How do we define our education? Well, this is it. Whole person education. Whole person. We are interested in the integral development of people. So that can be online, definitely. We also have one feature which I'd like to inject here, which is mentoring. We've taken mentoring in the university much more seriously through the years. We've also been training all our mentors, because this is also what makes a big difference. Every student has a mentor. And it's up to the student if he or she would like to avail of that, but that's also our effort to go to make the education as personal and up close as possible. So, you know, now in this day and age, mental health is such a big thing. So what are we trying to do in UA&P? Well, that's it. We have, of course, our psychologists, our guidance counselors. That's probably one of the offices in the university that has become so busy over the last few years, and at this time also. But we also have the mentors there, right? The mentors of each student, more than willing to be of help. And that's where that's how we walk the talk. We're interested in the person, and therefore we try to look at you individually as a person. You're not just a student number, you're a human being, you're a person. And if I may just directly link this to our program, IMC and NEM. You know, one of our core values is humanity, meaning how do we translate that in an IMC program, in somebody who wants to get into business, into marketing? We don't see consumer just a consumer. By the way, when we teach marketing, at least in IMC classes, I now say this, actually, we prefer not to use the term consumer, but we have no choice. It's what the books tell you and it's what industry uses. But we prefer to call them people, persons, right? Because it changes your view, right? You know, a consumer is not just a fat wallet. We're not just looking at these people with fat wallets we want to take advantage of. Behind this fat wallet is a human being, right? And that's why now even consumer behavior, consumer insights, we prefer to call it human insight, right? Because I think it enriches the kind of insights you will get rather than just MEM, media and entertainment. We don't want just to use audiences. Behind the audiences is a human person. So what kind of stories are we going to tell these human beings watching us, right? How are we affecting them by our entertainment products, our entertainment programs, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, that's not a nutshell. In a nutshell, that's what I wanted to say, but I hope it answered it.
Wow, that's well done. I'm still learning stuff, even being out of university for like so many years already. No, I think that's well said. Sorry, I'm just going to dive into this one. I'm going to just give like two perspectives, and I really love that point of view that you have, Dr. K. So strange to see myself, but I absolutely love that point of view, and I want to just basically add two things here. First is, and I think Gladys was the one who started this earlier, where that focus on humanities, I think, makes this, I think, for me, it really stands out because there's two things here. I think it really gives us, you know, the EQ to be able to deal with the industry on so many levels. But at the same time, virtues in terms of loving the work that we do, this, no matter how hard it gets, and maybe the discipline again in the load and, you know, and the kind of courses that we have is one thing, but then I think the other one is making those difficult calls when there's morals at stake, and sooner or later that question would come to surface, whether it's whether it's you as an employee making a decision versus, you know, one thing versus another, or even as a leader within an organization having to also make decisions about your own people or about the future of your company, and how is that moral compass affecting it. And I just have the sense that I would not have had that had it not been for my IMC education. So that is, yeah, I just wanted to put that on the table. On the earlier question, like, where is would the value still be the same given the fact that it's virtual? I think fundamentals are fundamentals. And I think the fundamentals that this course teaches would be there regardless of whatever way the course is taught, whether it's in person or virtual, because the professors that you would be able to get, the way that the course is structured has been done in a way that, again, it doesn't matter whether you're taking this in virtually or not. But I do think that the onus on the individual and their propensity or their desire to learn needs to be magnified, I think, in this current environment that we have. So yeah, I just wanted, that is my point of view on that question.
Thank you.
I want to add also on the focus on the person and the consumer. And I just realized, I guess, coming from this discussion that how much it was ingrained in us because of the course, and how it's almost instinctive now to think consumer first. And I don't think I've ever encountered a situation where I was so engrossed in our brand and I lost track of the consumer, just because you're always wired to think about the consumer again, if it makes sense to them. I mean, of course, over the course of your professional life, you do encounter some who are so in love with the brand, and forget that your consumers are people too, and they think not just about what they're gonna eat for, as a snack, but this person does think of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And sometimes we kind of forget that. And so it's funny how I just remembered one fond memory of one of the research we had to do. So we were given a task to do a case study before, I think it was fourth year, on a feeds brand. And by feeds, that means chicken feeds and these rooster feeds, and I think it was also pig feeds. So we actually went to the farm and interviewed them, and actually talk to farmers to understand, what motivated them to buy a particular feed over another. And then you understand, wow, they have such a close relationship with their chickens and their roosters, such that it formed that insight that we used eventually to create that campaign. So that, I think, is quite memorable. We had several of that. We spoke to construction workers to understand what makes them, drink a particular beverage and what it feels to them. So those, I think, are what I eventually took and still apply to this day, where we have to reel back. Sometimes I work with a lot of brands. I work on global CPG or global FMCG. And sometimes they talk to us about, oh, let's target the beauty user, right? And we have to reel back and say, but probably every human person who can actually use makeup, not necessarily just those who are interested in it. So I think that's where, again, it goes back to being grounded in the consumer. And I think that's an advantage that the course does give you.
Okay, so now we have one last question. This actually comes from someone in our audience for the speakers, and I think Ms. Kochan can answer this one because her talk kind of touched on it. I would like to ask the speakers on what advice can you tell students who are having a hard time deciding what course they want to pursue in college? And of course, your SCM take on it.
Gladys, I think the question was for you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have much of an answer. That's why I applied to different courses per university. I think, especially now in this, pandemic situation, there's a lot more resources online, because online is the only channel that people have. I would say do a lot of research online. There's also a lot of videos, I think, that you can watch on different professions, because ultimately the question you're answering is, what do I want to be, right? What field do I want to devote a majority of my adult life to? And I think at this time there's a lot, as I said, of resources that students have at their disposal to find out more about what each profession is about, what it takes, what the requirements are. And when I say requirements, it's what it demands from you, from a commitment perspective, from a passion perspective. And information is power. So if you make yourself as educated as possible, then hopefully you arrive at an answer as close to what eventually you will end up being, as close to it as possible.
I just want to add also a perspective on that one. And it's really around this whole concept of a generalist versus a specialist. And somehow I feel like this course kind of sets you up to be a very good generalist because of your exposure to so many different things. And I think that there was a quote, or there was somebody had mentioned before that the generalists will actually rule the future. And I think the reason for that is simply because of the pace of change that's happening now. And I think we've seen it to be most evident this year, right? Where we've never really realized the amount of change that would happen within a given year, even within the span of a few months, right? So I think that ability, again, I think when you choose now what path would you want for the future, I would say which is the course that would be able to set you up or to be able to help you manage the change that we can expect the future to bring us. Because again, it will throw you curveballs nowadays, and we really don't know where this, where the market's going, where the world's going nowadays. And if you are armed with the skills to be able to deal with whatever environment we may be facing in the future, I think that would be the path that I would personally go with if I were to go back to university.
Okay, I think that's about it. That was our final question. So for everyone here, there you have it. That concludes the second episode of Unitas Online featuring the School of Communications. If any of you guys, Dr. K, would you like to add something?
No, I just wanna, Lori, Liam, Gladys, and Neil, before we end, could we just, we should have a photo on this.
Oh yeah, okay. So Dr. K would like to.
Yes, definitely.
No problem.
Sorry, Mike, go.
No, go ahead. Okay. So are you gonna do it now? Or? Okay. So later. Okay. Before we end, I'd just like to tell anyone, if you have any further questions, further inquiries, then you can message us on our UA&P Facebook account, or you can message the UA&P JMC Facebook page. So the JMC, they're basically like me. We are a bunch of ambassadors for the schools, for students, and we're here to help you guys out. So if you have any more queries, please just message us on Facebook. So thank you everyone for attending this event. Thank you so much, Dr. K. Thank you so much, speakers. Thank you so much, the audience. We hope that this helped you with the concerns and questions that you had. Yes, Doc? Did you say anything?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you to you. Thank you. And thank you to Gladys, Neil, Lori, and Liam.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks to everyone for setting us up.
Thank you also to the Corporate Communication Office. So again, I am Mike Racha, your episode 2 Unitas Online host, signing off. We would love to see you again in the next episode of Unitas Online. Stay safe, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you.